Welcome, everybody, to the Channel Vision Magazine's webinar, a roundtable discussion with FirstComm, which will discuss powering your customers' cloud transition. I'm your moderator, Bruce Christian, Senior Editor of Channel Vision Magazine. Joining us for the roundtable from FirstComm are Kevin Bartnicki, Vice President of Wholesale and Channel, Jim Hetzel, Manager of Sales Engineering and Training, and Chris Ford, Vice President of Product and Marketing. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Bruce.
And with that, let's get started. Kevin, why don't you begin? Tell us a little bit about FirstComm. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Bruce. Industry veteran. Unfortunately, that just makes me old, I suppose, these days. Been in the industry a little over 25 years now, circulating across a lot of different industries within our own industry. Landing at FirstComm about 2.5 years ago, and I've been working on creating our wholesale channel, as well as helping and implement a more strategic partner program and agent program for FirstComm. We've been in the space, but we are looking to just sort of put a new face on the product we've been pushing out. So it's been a busy few years outside of COVID, just adding and changing things and working on some new strategies in the background. FirstComm has been near and dear to my heart as a customer of mine in years past. I've known the company for some time. But at our core, we've been in business since '98, a trusted Midwest telecom provider, and over the last 2 decades, we've provided your normal voice and data and cloud services, and we are a CLEC under the hood, so obviously legacy product, etc. So copper network in the background. So we have been providing business to all types of different entities and niche markets over the course of our lifespan so far. So the last few years, and I should say the last decade, we have been in the midst of a transition from old technology, our legacy stuff on the CLEC side, transitioning into our cloud environment. And over the last, I'd say we're at about 12 years now where we successfully implemented our own cloud and IP product suite. I'm unfortunately moving away from what we know on our legacy side. But unfortunately, with the times we're in, that is a change that we're, of course, talking about today. But that is the change that we're in the midst of as an industry, not just FirstComm, of course. So thankfully, we've been working on it for the last decade. And in my opinion, we've been very successful, not only migrating and implementing, but creating that experience within our own organization to help our customers and our partners understand our product suite and have that consultative type of selling and support structure in-house at FirstComm. But we have a customer-first approach. So one thing that I can say, working for several different organizations, not that we all didn't strive for it. One thing here at FirstComm is we have a customer-first approach, and I say it all the time because it's true. We have employees that have all been here over a decade. So many employees over a decade, some over 20, Mr. Ford. And it's great to see because you don't see it as much anymore, if at all. And what does that mean? That means we have experience in-house, not just with the products, but also with our customers. They get to know our people. They're not calling strangers anymore. They're calling the same person over and over again for years. And that to me speaks volumes about the organization and how it's put together. But the products and the customers that we bring to the table keep our employees here, keep our customers here. And it's an exciting organization to be part of. And on top of that, and I'll give total credit to Mr. Ford, is keeping our product suite frosty. In other words, as we shift in technology from old or legacy into the new world of IP, which isn't so new anymore, we're staying on top of our own game, enhancing our product suite, enhancing our own technology that we currently have, and staying current with all our vendors. So we have all the latest and greatest features and we're definitely open to new technologies from partners and customers as we talk through solutions with all different walks of life. So hopefully that explains us in a nutshell, but excited to be part of the team here at FirstComm.
Great. Jim, do you want to give us a little background on yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Bruce. Again, my name is Jim Hetzel. I'm the manager of sales engineering and training. I've been with FirstComm about 5 years. I guess I do 3 main things at FirstComm. I listen, I manage, and I teach. As a sales engineer, I listen to our customers to understand their needs. I manage relationships, whether it's relationships with our customers, our agents, or even just with the different organizations within our company, sales, marketing, operations, et cetera. And finally, I teach. Sometimes it's training a new customer, new employees, even teaching a class on the benefits of Sd-Wan to our sales organization. Fun fact, I am an amateur woodworker.
That is a fun fact. All right, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know how I can follow those two introductions. I'll keep mine pretty short. Yeah, I'm Chris Ford. I've been in the telecom industry for around 27 years. At FirstComm for about 21. And for me, I guess being a product enthusiast is kind of what I call myself, and kind of watching the industry evolve, especially over the past 10 years. That piece really keeps me motivated to help find solutions for customers and partners. We're trying to stay agile at the pace that these new products and standardizations are kind of rolling out. So,
FirstComm has 2 decades of communications experience across cloud, on-premise, and hybrid solutions. So I'm sure to our panelists that you're seeing a ton of transition with businesses large and small adjust to virtual demands. So can you share with us what challenges you are seeing present themselves?
Yes. So virtual demands, I suppose the demands and challenges I think about the end of 2019 when we talk about this question. And as we were talking about our discussion, certainly, and how things ended in 2019. So the demand was, of course, there for businesses to certainly start thinking about their transition policies. And when I say that, I mean, do they put a cloud in their budget, a cloud services in their budget, whether it's communications, security, whatever it may be. We saw that shift probably 2011, 2013, where it really started to shift. But in the last 3 years prior to 2020, unfortunately, that's going to be a benchmark for us for a long time. But 2019 shows up at the end of it, and we definitely saw that progression. And the analysts definitely looked at, I don't know, they always go out about 5 years, but we'll say 2025 to 2027, where there was going to be another major shift. And of course, the chart was going to swing upwards as far as what we're going to see in the adoption of cloud services changes. Enter 2020, and I hate to say the pandemic did a lot of work for us on things that we have been evangelizing for probably better half of a decade, as far as the mobility tools and the features and functionalities that you have at your fingertips that you can still run and manage a business. But as we all know, and we talk about the challenges of a transition, in my opinion, always comes to that word migration. So it can be a fear, or looked at it as a disruption. So when we talk about transition, we're talking about managing disruptions, the challenges of security and compliance as you move your entire workforce to an at-home scenario, of course, over the last 18 months. And not just in the last 18 months, I mean, the work from home strategy has been slowly breaking ground prior to 2020. And of course, the last 18 months has skyrocketed everybody to an at-home type of scenario. With that, of course, you got interoperability challenges with different components within your network now, because you're not all in an office space where it's easy to control and manage. Bandwidth and performance, I mean, we could go on about that, but how's your home internet? How's your home firewall? How is all that? And unfortunately, now you have companies that have to manage all of this. Downtime is a real thing, and it's not hey, our office Wi-Fi is down, which we're all used to it from time to time. Now it's, hey, somebody down the street hit one of our lines, so my home internet's down, I can't work today, or I have to go somewhere else to work. So again, a disruption of production possibly. And then the biggest one, in my opinion, because I'm an advocate of education of what we've been doing over the last 10 years, is technical knowledge. As we've been doing this evangelist stuff for 10 years and explaining how amazing it is and how robust it is. Now that folks were forced or thrust into it last year, people, I mean, it took a lot of people a lot of time, about 3 months or so, in my opinion, based on what I saw, the ability to realize it works, they trust it, and then they can actually do their job. So those are the big challenges in front of us as we start to move to a cloud service or a cloud first ideology in our industry. But when I say that, I mean in the business industry, not just the telecom industry, of course. Everybody is now having that cloud first ideology, which is fantastic. And then, I mean, certainly we can talk about, so we got challenges, and then what do we have for solutions, or what do we take in consideration when we're speaking to clients or consulting with them about a smooth transition? So we talk about technology, right? That's the first thing in everybody's mind, because you're looking at something old and trying to bring in something new. So communications technology needs to be aligned, of course, with your transition goals. What do those look like? What does your communications look like today, and what are you trying to get out of a new layered technology on maybe existing bandwidth if it's worthwhile? And what does your underlying network look like? And when you're talking to a sales professional, you want to make sure you're hitting all these key points. And we certainly have checklists and things we go through as an organization, just on the technology side. Because I hate to say it, not everybody's technology is aligned or ready for that next jump into the cloud or the IP space. Then, of course, is the process from, IDing and evaluating and establishing a clear and comprehensive understanding of what the customer needs, of all their communication processes, with the new features and functionality that seem to change probably every 3 months, I feel like. It's important for us as an organization to stay up to date, as I mentioned, on technology and features, but also making sure we're explaining to a customer what we have to see if that may check a box for them on an old piece of equipment or old communications processes they have. And now we have this newer feature or a new process that can actually fill that gap and most likely provide that solution in a more efficient manner. And of course, using existing stuff. So that's great. And the biggest component, as I mentioned, I'm an advocate of education of all things in our segment. People, you can do all you want with getting a business ready for a transition into the cloud. But at the end of the day, if we're not training the end users, people, it's almost useless, right? Because as I mentioned, there's fear involved. And one of the big things in that fear category is people's objectivity to change. It's a human nature. But if we educate and give people the tools they need to understand new technology, and you do that prior to the transition, you're going to have a successful transition or migration onto newer technology. Because the last thing you want is people that don't have a clue how to dial a phone or pull up a soft phone, or all the simple things we consider simple. If people haven't been exposed to it, it's very important that the first two are taken care of, and that's usually taken care of pretty easily. But some things that are missed is that training aspect and the people that we're working with at the end user sites and with our partners. So education is big, and we at FirstComm certainly take a hard stance on education. We like to train and make sure people understand what the heck they're getting into.
Chris, did you want to talk about products and resources?
Yeah. As you mentioned earlier, Kevin, you're referring to a lot like the virtual stuff, right? Remote employees and stuff. And I'll take this question maybe a little bit differently, since a lot of the businesses are, still have offices, locations, right? Employees are now going back to work. I think some of the bigger challenges, especially for us, because we're in this space, but the customers out there, for me, one of the biggest challenges right now is ISPs on the copper side of the house. They're starting to sunset this, right? And you think about it, your AT&Ts and Verizons. So what's happening is that there's a lot of cost increases that are being pushed out to customers because of that copper piece, right? That we're talking like traditional copper TDM circuits that you would need to fire up a PRI, right? Some of the old fax lines and fire alarms, elevator lines. These are some of the bigger challenges, because as these customers are getting these increases or notifications that, hey, this product is going away, you need to have another solution, right? And that's kind of where we are in that space. It's kind of really finding a solution for those customers for that. The other thing is ISP network reliability, right? And some form of redundancy. Depending on the locations of some of these customers, and I look at this from the business sides, right? You have your kind of like mid enterprise, large enterprise, and smaller businesses, and they all have their needs. A lot of the smaller businesses run into issues where there really is only one ISP out there, right? Could be your coax and whatnot. So I think as someone managing that business, one of the harder things is find some form of reliability into that bandwidth they need to run all their services, or their phones, right? Their day-to-day internet and stuff that they need. And having some form of redundancy, right? Having multiple carriers to kind of provide that redundancy for them. And then, of course, one of the other challenges, especially starting to come out, is more of like a lot of swivel chairing, right? Integrations in existing systems, as customers look to utilize their existing applications or CRM tools and stuff like that. I think the swivel chair aspect is really starting to weigh down when you have multiple platforms as an end user having to manage and maintain and run, right? Versus just having all those systems kind of working within, right, one ecosystem. So they're not swivel sharing as much, right? And so that's kind of one of the bigger issues that are coming up that I'm starting to see for challenges, is really getting all their applications to kind of work from an integration side of the house that works either with their voice applications and all their other database and tools that they use. Outside of that, Jim, I don't know. What do you got?
Well, in a prior life, I was an IT administrator, and so I have a lot of empathy for them. And when all of a company's staff is in the office, it's fairly easy for an IT administrator to secure the company's network borders. But over the past year and a half, there's been a dramatic shift transitioning to a remote workforce, sometimes even 100% remote. This has introduced a new challenge for them to extend the LAN edge into the home and remote workspaces of staff members and keep the network assets not only available, but also safe and secure from outside threats such as viruses and malware. FirstComm is here to help in this situation with our managed firewall product.
Can you tell us a little bit about that product, Jim?
Sure. So we utilize Fortinet firewalls, which is an industry-leading big iron. All of our firewalls protect with virus, malware, intrusion prevention, content filtering, DNS filtering, and then, of course, in a multi-site setup, industry-leading throughput for IPsec tunnels. It's virtually as secure as MPLS.
Okay. With all these challenges in play, there are many MSPs, MSSPs, and providers seem to be working to offer solutions. With constant changes reshaping the workforce collaboration across remote and hybrid operations, what business solutions are you seeing a greater demand for as companies reshape workforce operations, and why?
Come on, Kevin.
It's, I think about my answers before, Chris. Come on.
Yeah.
Just kidding. So reshaping, it's funny. The workforce operations, actually, Chris had said it before. We talked. There are people still in the office, of course, and as we've seen, which seems rudimentary at this point because we've been in the IP space for so long, but we see data has changed, right? We could talk about the different the timeline of how data has changed over the last 15 years. But now, obviously, being I'd say fiber first environment into what we provide or certainly try to pitch, I think the data trajectory from what we see in 2021, it's going to double in 5 years. We know this, and that's that makes sense because everything we're talking about here today obviously rides some type of large data connection or a well-established data connection. So not that data is reshaping what we're doing. Obviously, the elements outside of even technology, obviously a pandemic in this case, have reshaped us for eternity at this point. But data has reshaped with the introduction of fiber. Honestly, the evolution of the Wi-Fi, the wireless connections, obviously going to 5G, and I've already seen the six coming out and all the things that you can do with wireless connections. And obviously what we're talking about today on say unified communications and other applications with a beefier wireless connection, there's tons of solutions now that can rip and replace old solutions, and customers will not even flinch as far as what they're currently utilizing because of a great connection. But I do think fiber and big data has actually reshaped our workforce operations. And honestly, I'm glad we were where we were in our industry prior to 2020 starting, because we would have been hurting pretty bad. But the other part that I think is completely reshaping is the integration of collaboration tools, and I think we've seen the evolution in the last 18 months. Zoom was always around. Zoom of course took off in the beginning. Then you see Microsoft and Microsoft Teams elevate their game, and what's really transpired into that work at home office environment. One pane of glass, do everything from one thing. And I think that has helped reshape workforce operations. And it's hard for employers to say, well, you have to be in the office because it's like, well, actually everything is now right in front of you. So I do think the collaboration tools plus the evolution of the data, which seems, again, rudimentary, I think has really helped reshape our workforce operations today.
Chris, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe I'm going to say this again, but like we're literally talking about this. For me, it's copper. It's like faxing. You ever thought like faxing is going to go away? Apparently, faxing never went away. So, but now for us, it is really copper. It's a lot of organizations that are in a bind, as I mentioned earlier. Like they're either you pay X amount of dollars, right, for this particular product that's completely like going away, or you have to find another solution, right? And so that seems to be like the biggest demand, surprisingly, right now, is that it's more of these copper replacements. We're talking alarm lines, right? Your security lines, SIP trunking. Now that you're moving a customer that's off maybe a traditional kind of a PRI interface that goes into a TDM circuit, is now shifting them over to a over-the-top SIP, right, with a device that's going to go over the internet. So these are hard to explain to a lot of customers that really you don't understand. But at the end of the day, I mean, AT&T, Verizon's like the bigger conglomerates have decided that, we may agree or disagree, but I think the problem is that it's being pushed out a lot faster, right, than it was. It's always been talked about, and for me, that's why I never really taken it overly serious. But now seeing what's happening, especially with us in our organization and the customers and finding needs, that's huge. Another thing, surprisingly for me, is the some of the challenges is some of these not buzzwords, they're legitimate words, but there are a lot of standardization verbiage that's getting pushed out constantly, right? Like stir shaken, and for 911 you have like Ray Bombs Act. So a lot of customers that will, they really don't realize that are they responsible for this, or like, so I get a lot of questions, concerns from customers asking me, hey, what do I need to do to be part of this, this requirement, and surprisingly, they really don't have to, right? First Communications, we already have those standardizations already in play. But it is interesting though that a lot of customers now are really educating themselves, and you have to be able to explain to them really what this, what these terms are, and we're talking like more telecom terms in the industry, and just making sure that us as an organization kind of complies with all this stuff. So.
And how about you, Jim? Anything to add?
Let's see, what business solutions am I seeing a greater demand for? Mostly an increase in UCaaS deployments, I would say. I see a lot of companies ordering both additional phones for staff to use at home, as well as headsets to use not only with those new phones, but also those customers that are making use of desktop collaborative apps, like, as Kevin mentioned, Zoom and Microsoft Teams.
Okay, yeah. Why don't we get the results of the poll and let you talk a little bit about, why don't you just tell us what you think about these results? So security tools come in at 38%, collaboration tools and a hybrid approach, blending multiple solutions are both 23%, network optimization is 15%, and customer experience didn't even register. So,
I suppose if you have all four of the other ones checkbox, the customer experience is sort of a given, right? So to speak. I mean, me personally, I think security is that makes complete sense. I mean, we've seen it on the news. We've seen the unfortunate things that have happened over the last, not only say the last month and a half, but the last 12 to 18 months with security, with large corporations, and not having a security ideology within your own business or what you're going to do for security is probably a big mistake. Obviously, at this point, I think everybody realizes that. In collaboration, hybrid makes sense having those two honestly dead even, because one kind of complements the other, and they sort of mean the togetherness of collaboration hybrid. So you're having that solution. So those make sense. Network optimization, I can see having a little bit, as Chris mentioned. There are people still in the office, not as many, but I do think having, and we've had conversations recently on just optimization of voice networks, and Sd-Wan certainly reigns supreme there. That's my opinion, but this really does make sense, and kind of what I figured as well, security being number one.
Mm-hmm. Jim, I saw you shaking your head. You agree?
Yeah, I'm really happy to see security topping the list. I have an interest in security, and it's nice. A lot of times when I've worked with a lot of companies deploying hosted phones, and if you ever ask them about their security, it's not something they really want to think about. It's not something they're worried about, at least in the past. And it's nice that with all of the intrusion attempts and WannaCry and ransomware and all these things coming out, that there is a genuine interest in security, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Okay. And Chris, any comments on the poll?
Yeah, I mean, like Jim said, I'm not surprised, especially over the past year, what all's been going on, right? So I think that the interesting piece is that a lot of smaller businesses that you'd be surprised that for the past 10 years, 15 years, we have a firewall, right? We have a managed router or something, some basic firewall in there. But I think the topic is now, coming in like full fruition now, where it's like, even I have a small business, I have data I have to protect. Does the product I currently have, does it offer this, and this? So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Okay, great. Let's get back to the meat of your presentation. How are you seeing companies manage their remote and or hybrid workforce environments?
Well, like I mentioned, I sort of joked where I was thinking about this, and I said transition or left behind. So how are they managing it? First and foremost, I'm a stats guy. Everybody knows this. I love stats because I do think it shapes both industry and product decisions and people's decision making within smaller businesses. So I had mentioned big data earlier. I just looked, we could talk about from 2011 forward, but I look at the 2021 stats forward, and basically it's going to close to double in the market space in the next 5 years, which to me is the demand for big data or bigger fiber pipes. We used to sell different data back in the day, as I would say. But to see a potential just doubling up is pretty wild. That means people are investing in the infrastructure, as Chris and Jim both talked about. You're going to need big data to power a lot of the solutions we're talking about. And I hate to say it, once you have fiber inside an organization, typically you're going to be okay. As far as the IP connection you're going to need to support those solutions that we've been talking about today. Obviously, a lot different than the older types of solutions. And, think about security and things of that nature. These are all going to be requirements that'll be needed, obviously, on the big data side. But the other part of the stats that I like to see, and I know these are estimates by pretty straightforward analysts, obviously Gartner being the top one, but this was an interesting demographic of just the as-a-service industry, something that I've personally been in for a long time, as well as Chris and Jim. Platform as a service is something I've been in for over a decade, but just seeing the jump that platform as a service is going to have from last year into next year, again, almost doubling in the millions, obviously. The cloud business is taking a huge jump, but the overall market jumping almost 200. I mean, just the millions of dollars in the change in one calendar year just shows not only what was happening, as I mentioned, from 2019 prior to the pandemic, and now the accelerated adoption post-pandemic now into our future. Thankfully, we as an industry had put together one heck of a product suite, in my opinion, and we have been going toward this ultimate goal of getting everybody into the cloud and mobile first kind of thought process. And we're here. And unfortunately, like I mentioned, it took a pandemic for people to realize that these services are actually worthwhile to put in place. They work. And then we can add these other accompanying solutions on top of it, as Jim mentioned, security and the collaboration pieces, and you can work from anywhere. So it is wild to see, but like I said, stats really do tell a story. They help us as an industry, but help everybody else understand where we're at, and obviously drive people to I hate to say buying decision, but it drives people to a decision because of what we see in things like this. I mean, it's pretty obvious of what's happening within the business segment.
Okay, thank you. Chris or Jim, you have anything to add?
Most companies seem to be using a mix of Microsoft Teams and Zoom, which are some truly great applications for team collaboration. These tools allow for everything from sharing of ideas, documents, even screens. And personally, this has had a tremendous impact on how I onboard new employees.
And Chris, you have anything?
I guess some of the challenges probably, I know when I think about this, I'm assuming we're talking about like remote environment, right? The hybrid workforce.
Yeah.
I think they touched base on a lot of the stuff earlier, just for me being within our organization and talking to, like, let's say our IT director, I know some of the pain points, right? The biggest piece a lot is when you immediately one day have to shift to a remote workforce, having those pieces in play already. And there was very difficult for a lot of businesses that had traditional TDM products out there. They really couldn't just, here, go home and plug in a phone, right? And so that was one. Another, the other issues were like VoIP readiness. Like, who would have thought, right? Like, you have internet, you can stream Netflix, you can do all this cool stuff, but you can't process a phone call over it, right? And you'd be surprised, right? Some of the carriers, that manage your modem or things that are out there at the customer's locations, their physical homes, sometimes they don't allow voice calls over them. We work with issues all the time where we have to explain those to the individual customer that's remote at home. So, I mean, for us, some of the solution-wise, we always recommend we have like a VoIP readiness tester that's a link for customers or physical home users can click, and it does test all the ports and all the fun stuff out, right? And then even providing like a one-page cheat sheet, right? These are the kind of the ports that need to be open. Some of it's technical, but it's good to have that, right, ahead of time, even for both the customer's IT vendor, right? Yeah, I mean, that's for me some of the challenges and some of the solutions, I guess.
Okay.
for them.
Well, Chris, I think you led right into our next question, and that is how is FirstComm optimizing its products and solutions to respond better to market and customer demands? And I think you just kind of touched on a little bit of that.
This slide says it all, right? So I hate to keep talking about a pandemic because we're all sick of hearing it, but I mean, it's changed our landscape, not just in our industry, the business landscape of America and the world. So you look at these percentages, and the hybrid workforce is here to stay. Work from home is only going to increase. So the challenges we're facing now are probably going to increase. So the enhancement of our technology we're offering is going to have to follow suit. So I think about Chris and I talking January of 2020. Obviously, we didn't understand the pandemic was coming. He and I had already started talking about a Microsoft Teams strategy. With our current platform that we own, we had a Zoom strategy. So we knew we had a collaboration video strategy, but we wanted that next level. And we had started talking about a secondary collaboration workforce tool. And I think it was probably, Chris, to be honest, I think it was the end of February where we really went all in to figure out a way to optimize our switch with Microsoft users today. And we came up with a couple of different products, one that everybody's using on the direct side, but then we came up with our own called UC Teams, which is really cool to keep everybody in a pane of glass, utilize the features they need, but stay in a collaborative environment. So we said collaboration is one of the key tools to this whole work from anywhere workforce. So I do believe that us taking a minute, and it took several months, of course, it wasn't easy, but to pull that in to the Microsoft environment with our call control features, it just added a layer of simplicity to the work from home users, where they just could stay in one thing. The education of the employee was easier for end users, et cetera. So just thinking about optimizing Teams with our current platform, which was something that we did right away, actually pre-pandemic, but we definitely finished it off quickly once that all hit the fan.
Damon, Chris, you want to add anything?
The other piece, of course, outside of your traditional product sets you offer, or at least especially that we offer, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's also finding like an existing legacy product and still making that work with, in our existing ecosystem, and basically saying, okay, we're shifting you off copper. However, you can still keep this piece of equipment and roll this, what you have, right, with some form of SIP solution for them. So,
we live in crazy times. I've known several people that have lost their jobs as part of COVID-19. During these times, companies are looking for ways to cut costs, which makes sense. One of the things that can help these businesses out is if they take a look at their monthly spend for internet connectivity, especially if they take a closer look at the connections that are leveraging MPLS. I've seen a 10 meg MPLS connection go for $425 a month. Maybe the customer needs more than 10 megs. Maybe they need 100 megs. I've seen a 100 meg connection go for $700, and that's on the cheap side. If they were to look at our enterprise SD-WAN product offering, they could ditch their expensive MPLS connection. All right, so how does it work? Enterprise SD-WAN, powered by VMware, throw in a couple of business class internet connections from different carriers, and you got yourself a solid network connectivity strategy that offers both the ability to have private site-to-site communication like MPLS, plus it also offers internet connection failover, all for a fraction of the cost of a traditional MPLS connection. And that's just talking about cost savings. That says nothing about the benefits of optimizing application performance or steering applications.
What would you say the FirstComm advantage is? What do you bring to the table that you differentiators from competitors?
So I am happy to answer that question.
I figured you would be.
Yeah, just because again, I'm a veteran. The gray and the beard, don't let it fool you. So being around the industry as long as I have, I look at a lot of people that are like FirstComm. There's a lot of companies out there like us, and industry wide. And I always say it's Products and services are very similar. But how do you differentiate if you all have data, you all have UCaaS, you all have collaboration? How do you differentiate, especially in this competitive market now? You know, price, as Jim mentioned, price is a big one. One thing that's great about our organization is, while sure, we have some set pricing, being smaller and a little bit more agile, we do have a little bit of carte blanche on cost and pricing depending on the opportunities and things that we're looking at. So it's not a dead set in stone type of thing. But in my opinion, the things that take it, that push us above are the people. I mentioned we have people that have been here well over a decade that not only know our customers, but they know our product suite and we know each other. So the culture in which FirstComm does business, I think, gives us a leg up and an advantage. Staying agile, having great employees that obviously help manage our partners and customers. You can have all the same products, right? And a lot of us do. I mean, we're all in the same business. We're all in competition, friendly competition. But the things that change are processes, people, and price, I think. And those are the things that I think where we can win and where we have been winning. And like I said, it makes me proud to be here. So that's my personal opinion.
Okay. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I think you know, one of the biggest pieces is really kind of staying relevant, right, and keeping up with the trends. You know, we're a traditional CLEC, and so you know we're the ones that are actually going through a lot of these pain points, and our customers are going through pain points. So us moving over traditional copper-based product sets and moving over to something different, you know, more modern, you know, that kind of separates us a lot because we're already well above a lot of organizations that are doing this. You know, I've talked to similar organizations that are in our same footprint, same business line, and they really haven't done anything yet. So that's kind of scary. The other things I would say that would be probably maybe provide some kind of bolt-on solutions, right, to some existing partners' portfolio. So we're not technically kind of stepping on their toes, right? So our product sets, we're able to, you know, if somebody wants to manage their IT side, third party can manage the customer's IT. Like, we don't really have to step on anyone's toes. We can offer products that will bolt on to those particular applications that we can kind of step in and manage, right? So that's another key piece I would say that gives us a bit of an advantage.
Okay, Jim?
Take Sd-Wan, for example. If cost is paramount and the only feature you're looking for is basic failover, we can get you into a solution for as little as like $50 a month. But let's say you need kind of all the bells and whistles, like forward error correction of voice and video traffic. And you need maybe to have your public static IPs be reachable, even if your primary internet goes down. We've got you covered. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we've got a variety of products to meet any of your needs, regardless of what they are.
Okay, great. And it's a good thing you brought up Sd-Wan because I see that we have a couple of Sd-Wan questions from our attendees. But before we get to them, I wonder, would you like to remind our attendees how they can reach FirstComm?
Sure. I'll certainly take that. For general inquiries, if you could, you can get a hold of us at the partner program at firstcom.com. I'm interested in signing up for whether it's a wholesale type of solution you need, or do you want to look at becoming a partner of FirstComm, you can hit us at that particular email address. Myself, Chris, and Jim's contact info is here on the screen, email and phone numbers. Also, in the next couple of weeks, if you happen to be heading to channel partners, and we're thankful that is going off this year, we will be there in force. We will have a meeting space on the show floor. So please check us out there or hit us up, and we can certainly make sure we make some time. And also, we're doing a great happy hour. After the last 18 months, we all need to blow off some steam. So please join us November 3rd out in Vegas at the Venetian. We'd love to see you.
All right, great. Let's get to those questions from attendees. And since you were talking about Sd-Wan, Jim, I'll ask this first question to you. How does Sd-Wan fit into security demands, concerns, and doesn't Sd-Wan somewhat address security?
Yes and no. So Sd-Wan is really about defining the network, right? and adding in benefits of multiple connections. Most SD-WAN boxes that get put in place, they're not stateful firewalls. So when you think about security, one of the things you're going to do on a firewall is look at the traffic that's coming in and that's going out. Sometimes you'll assign rules like, hey, you can go to Netflix, for example, or you can't. Remote access employees might be coming in and you want to be able to establish what assets they'll have access to and which ones they don't have access to. These are the roles of a firewall. So for managing security with SD-WAN, you really kind of want to pair together both a box that will optimize the application layer and prioritize them, and at the same time, a box that's going to handle the security, the policies, the antivirus, the malware, the intrusion protection, the remote access. So one of our products is kind of the marriage of the two, the kind of an enterprise SD-WAN and an industry-leading stateful firewall. I hope that answers your question.
All right. The other SD-WAN question is SD-WAN down to the home becoming viable to manage remote workforces? And will CPE price points get low enough?
Down to the home. Well, if you leverage a firewall in conjunction with your primary office's SD-WAN connection, you can extend that network edge down to home offices. From a price point of view, I don't know that I would put a quote SD-WAN edge at an employee's house. I might just issue them a license for a remote access VPN client and have them remote back to the firewall that's sitting inside of that SD-WAN network and extend it that way. One of the things I can do with that remote access VPN client is also put in place certain security policies like antivirus, make sure they're on certain patch level for operating system or applications. Yeah, I don't know that I have not seen too many companies outside of maybe some bigger companies where maybe they have some big wigs that have home offices and they want to have redundant connections running in and out of their house, where they put an edge device from a SD-WAN at a home.
Okay, all right. We talked a little bit about collaboration tools. So after the rush to get workers connected and collaborating remotely, what issues are companies discovering now that they pull their heads up and look around at what was sometimes hastily placed?
I mean, I guess I'll speak from my experience and what I saw. Obviously, it was certainly a mad dash to get everybody remote as quickly as possible. I think Zoom definitely benefited the majority of that, especially in the first 3 months as we saw things blow up. I think after the dust settled, say June, July, I think what folks realize is the work from home environment, when we equal that to a collaboration tool, they're not all created equal. We all know that at this point. So there's different feature functionality that needs to be associated with different industry niches or possibly personnel or whatever that employee's position is, a feature they may require in a collaboration environment that might not have been at their initial launch or deployment to get them quickly to home. So I think after, it was about 6 to 8 months, and of course there's a lot of uncertainty still, where I started to see, because I just assumed folks would just stay with what they took. You know, we got everybody home, people can call people, there's video, etc. But the tools associated with the collaboration tools were not as sufficient as needed. I also think stability came into play in certain collaboration platforms. I I won't speak any names, but I just know that there was differences in some stability issues. So now I'm starting to see the investigation by companies because, as we all talked about, the hybrid work environment's here to stay. So now they're really looking into and looking to put forth more capital into what they're probably going to latch onto for the foreseeable future. So I think tools and features probably were lacking, and then of course stability are my three top that I've seen since the inception of March of last year.
Okay, all right. We got 2 questions left. First, and I think, Chris, this is perfect for you. What lessons has FirstComm learned during its transformation off legacy services that customers could benefit knowing?
I mean, we're still learning. Honestly, if anyone like partners or customers on our, whoever's on the call, the only thing I can really push is that this is serious. It's not it's not like companies are looking to gouge people. We just don't have control, right? We didn't run the copper, or we don't maintain and kind of manage some of that copper that goes out. And I see a lot, and we did it on the first, when it first rolled out, it was like, okay, this can't be serious, And then once the government stepped in, allowing these copper-based companies to kind of dictate of what's going to go down the road and how fast it's happening, it really came up quick. So if I'm going to give advice, take these notifications that you see from your service providers legit, and I understand a lot of people are like, well, I can find somebody else. Well, at the end of the day, yes, you can find somebody else, but everyone is going through this. So, you may move to another legacy product that someone else can offer, but it's going to happen. Everyone's has to participate in this, and so I think the advice I'm saying is act now and at least try to find a solution, right? Even if you have to look at other providers, but just really take it serious and see what other options are out there, right? Because there are options that actually work really great over, that now that the legacy copper stuff's kind of going away. So those products are available.
Okay, we have one final question. I'd like all 3 of you to answer it because you've all been through the transformations from when FirstComm first started back in, what did you say, 1998, I think, something like that?
Yep.
So what do you see, how do you see communications evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? And how can companies better prepare for these shifts?
For years, I've seen copper connections for traditional on-site PBX as well as fax machines, right? And with the increase in popularity of hosted VoIP systems, as well as like fax to email, heck, even HIPAA compliant fax to email, I imagine we will very shortly, maybe 5 to 10 years, see the death of just copper lines to businesses.
Kevin, you want to add?
Yeah, just to and I agree with Jim, certainly. We're at that crossroads as we speak with the transition. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see that 5G to 6G, whatever that G is going to be, start to take a foothold in how we communicate. I mean, it's going to be a wireless can mimic a fiber connection. You're going to see the physical connection start to go away. And on top of that, you're probably going to see AI start to take another foothold. It's already the availability of AI and what it can do for a business as far as just the intellectual, smart type of feedback it can provide a company on all kinds of different things. I think you're going to see the wireless as it increases, as well as AI connections start to become that next evolution of what we're doing today.
Okay. Chris, we'll give you the final word.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier about the remote stuff. I'm not going to touch about the copper. I think I coppered out on this call, but I think, they always say this, but everyone's talking about the death of the handset, right? Well, when the pandemic hit, everyone expected everyone to go full on headsets and have all this remote stuff, and it kind of did. But what we saw was a very increasing uptick on like phones. Right now, the businesses are coming back. What do we see right now? There's no inventory of these devices, right? So I think, the market itself will shift, and I think, your traditional handsets that go into like hosted systems and stuff, that it's going to evolve a lot faster. And I think a lot of companies now, when you look at a UCaaS product that you're trying to sell, as companies, parents or whatever sell their business to their kids, or company sells their business to whoever else. We see a trend more of the people that are looking for those type of services, not your traditional hosted services, right? Where you have a basic auto attendant, you got a hunt group and all that stuff. A lot of stuff is slowly, and I see it a lot, kind of not going away, but shifting more towards like a CPaaS kind of play, right? Where hey, I just want to be able to click a button and make a phone call and take a call that comes in, right? And get voicemail. So you don't need a heavy hitting hosted phone system to do that stuff, as long as it's kind of built in this little kind of, I always say single pane of glass application, right? You can kind of navigate. So I see some of those trends picking up a lot quicker than what we probably would expect. And I think a lot of it has to do with just a lot of hardware, right? Is really hard to get right now. And it's going to be for a while.
Okay, sounds very good. Very informative presentation, gentlemen. I want to thank Kevin Bartnicki, Vice President, Wholesale and Channel of FirstComm. FirstComm's Jim Hetzel, from Manager of Sales, Engineering, and Training. And of course, FirstComm's Chris Ford, Vice President of Product and Marketing, for participating in today's roundtable discussion. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Before we go, I want to remind you about our webinar rewards program. By attending this webinar, you automatically are enrolled in the Channel Vision Webinar Rewards Program. Just keep an eye out for monthly prize drawings. And for information on the program and to see what kind of prizes you can win, visit our website, channelvisionmag.com/webinar rewards. And I also want to remind you that you can access this webinar and all other Channel Vision productions on demand by visiting our website, channelvisionmag.com. And now, from all of us at Channel Vision Magazine and our guests from FirstComm, thank you for attending. Have a safe and prosperous day.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.
Thanks.